You hold me prisoner now with your earthly spells, but I will mean your death. I grant you no power of my own will. I bring you death. Yeah, see, if the magic space rock I called down started threatening me, I would probably rethink my life choices. It was a night as normal as any other when the star fell from the heavens. With a blinding light and a thunderous roar, the star descended, crashing into the mountain's side. The people of the steppes had long lived in the shadows of these mountains, long endured the harsh life in the flatlands. Yet, as the ground shook and the skies roared, these people, who had long prided themselves on their strength and courage, knew fear. Bo-Ugan, the chieftain of the largest village in the steppes, made an alarming proclamation. The sorcerers, in their mountainside ziggurat, have summoned evil from the sky and intend to destroy the world. Up in that very ziggurat, Bo-Ugan's claim was proving to be nearly true. The Order of the Crimson Sun, alongside their master, Thotis, had long toiled for this day, weaving their magic to call down the star from heaven. Thotis's disciples hauled the fallen star from its crater, carrying it, with great effort, to the highest chambers of the ziggurat, placing it on an altar. As Thotis admired the star, it spoke, in a voice barely audible, cursing Thotis and decreeing that it would be his death. Rather than being terrified of this star and its claim, Thotis was overjoyed. He knew now that his efforts were not in vain, that this was a star of great power, and that power would be his. By then, the barbarians in the steppes had banded together, amassing their men into a great army, seeking to wipe out the sorcerers for good, knowing in their hearts that the ziggurat housed only evil. This initial attack was repelled, yet the people of the steppes did not give up. They knew that the sorcerers were evil and needed to be destroyed for the good of all, and so they continued their assault, facing magical attacks as they assailed the ziggurat. For every room, a great deal of blood was shed, and neither side was willing to relent. Plans were made, trenches were dug, fortifications built. The siege of the ziggurat went on for days, weeks, months, and then years. The small village of the steppes grew as mercenaries came to the area from afar. Homes were built and walls were raised, a small city cropping up where once only villages and goats resided. For 10 long years, this war raged, a relentless battle between sword and sorcery. And it is this war that Red Sonja now finds herself caught up in. Sonja, on her never-ending quest for adventure, had come to this battlefield seeking primarily coin. In the time she's lent her sword to this war, Sonja has contended with sorcerers and their magic, their traps, and even the animated corpses of the slain. Fighting alongside Red Sonja is the sellsword Darren, a traveling partner and handy blade in a fight. During their time battling the sorcerers of the ziggurat, these two agreed on one thing. This battle was a stalemate with no clear victor. What's more, the magic of the Ziggurat's priests was possibly affecting the land, weakening the crops and poisoning the minds and bodies of the people. Bo-Ugan, still the chief after all these years, felt it too, and was now desperate to finally end this war. All of his strategies, all of his tricks have brought him no closer to victory. Not even hiring his own mages to battle the order worked. And so, Bo-Ugan was desperate for any strategy that may finally bring victory, and welcomed the counsel of anyone with a plan. Mercenaries constantly appeared at Bo-Ugan's base, some seeking fortune, others simply wanting to cause trouble, like those led by Astor. But not all were troublesome. Iatos, an older man and lover of men, for instance, had become good friends with Sonja and a voice of reason in camp. Even as the situation seemed more dire, he seemed wiser. And while Sonja may not have had a plan, her companion Darren might. His father, he revealed to her, was a sorcerer, and though Darren didn't personally know the man, he knew that he wielded great magic and may be able to help against the Order of the Crimson Sun, if only they knew where to find him. With Bo-Ugan's blessings, Darren and Sonja set off alongside Urim, a soldier who suffered a wound to the head and was now simple-minded. Sonja was confused as to why Darren wanted Urim to come along, but Darren assured her that the man had his purpose. To the west, these three rode for several days, eventually coming across a vast and terrible swamp, within which lay horrible monstrosities, deformed creatures that may have once been human. Sonja and Darren fought off these abominations for a time, until Darren himself got an idea. Using what little sorcery he knew, the sellsword compelled one of the swamp things to lead the way to Oscilla the Witch, the mistress of the swamp. Once at the home of this witch, Darren petitioned her for aid in locating Odorok, his father. Oscilla was powerful in magic, but Odorok was stronger still, and if he lived, she would not have the ability to find him easily. Instead, the Swamp Witch proposed the use of a tool, and it was here that Sonja realized why Urim was brought along. Oscilla intended to sacrifice Urim to create a device capable of locating Odorok, and Darren must have suspected this need when he brought the damaged man along. Sonja was both shocked and furious at the idea, refusing at first to even humor the notion of sacrificing poor Urim. She was outraged that Darren, whom she'd grown quite fond of, would even consider sacrificing another to magic, to risk their very soul. Darren in turn tried to assure Sonja that there would be no risk to Urim's soul. The man was already struck dumb by his injury, and slaying him, Darren argued, would be a mercy. Yet Sonja would hear none of it. Stepping out into the swamp, Sonja attempted to get Urim to run, warning him that the pair of Darren and Oscilla meant to slay him. Yet, out there, in the dim swamp air, she spotted something. The same pale light she witnessed as a child. The same vision that visited her all those years ago. In that moment, Urim was lucid again, and assured Sonja that he knew what was about to happen, and that he was content. Still upset, yet accepting, Sonja stepped back as Oscilla worked her magic. Urim was brought out to a clearing in the swamp, where the witch called forth a demon of flame, a creature of great power. In a burst of light, Urim was consumed by fire, and in a moment it was done. Urim was gone. In his place rested a lone jewel. This, Oscilla claimed, would lead Darren to his father. The witch gave a knowing smile, reminding the sorcerer's son that her payment would be his soul. That is to say, when he died, she would own his soul. It's possible that Sonja and Darren could have easily cut down the witch, but they were pressed for time and did not wish to risk their mission, and so the pair set off again, battling their way through the monsters to leave the swamp in search of Odorok. On their journey, Sonja and Darren spoke little. Sonja, still upset, wished to be left to her own thoughts, but Darren assured her of one thing. Despite what happened, despite what he did to Urim, Darren did love Red Sonja, and he knew that she felt for him as well. Still, he did not press the matter as they grew nearer to their destination. The jewel led the pair to a hill in the countryside, a mound with a small hut built into the side that led down into the earth. Within, they found Odorok, or at least they believed they did, an old man stuck deep in some sorcerous trance. While Darren examined his father, Sonja explored the rest of the underground chambers, coming up to a great glass globe, within which she found a prisoner, struggling, begging to be freed. Taking a small rock in the room, Sonja smashed the globe, freeing the old man inside. Just then, she heard a scream, and Darren appeared, furious, claiming that she had killed his father. The pair crossed swords, though Sonja was able to disarm and pin Darren without too much trouble. After a moment, Darren did calm down, his anger receding, though his grief remained. It was here that the elder man introduced himself. He was Ban Itos, a sorcerer, and had come to visit Odorok a month prior. But Odorok was making plans of his own, and he imprisoned Ban Itos, who would surely have perished if not for Sonja's aid. Odorok's death was caused by his own magic rebounding when Sonja broke Ban Itos's prison, and so Odorok was consumed by magic and reduced to ashes. Together, these three, brought together by fate, agreed on a plan. They would return to the ziggurat alongside a mercenary army hired along the way to battle Thotus and his sorcerers, as well as the star itself. Banitos would lend his aid. Darren also collected the ashes of his father, as they may yet prove useful. Together the three set off and, in the city of Ikrahad, would spend a month hiring any mercenary band, sellsword, or brigand willing to lend their blade to the fight against Thotus. Now with an army at their side, the three returned to the war front. There, they found the grass dying, the trees wilting, and the people gone. It seems that not long after Darren and Sonja departed, the true effects of the star became apparent, sapping the very life from the land. Bo-Ugan was on his deathbed, barely strong enough to speak. Yet he was overjoyed at the army brought before him, and pleaded with Sonja to at last end the sorcerers of the ziggurat. The next day the attack was on. Even after receiving a grim threat from the Order of the Crimson Sun, Sonja and her mercenaries charged headlong into the ziggurat, and what followed was a non-stop battle. Room after room they fought, fighting sorcerers and facing magical traps. They battled their way up the floors of the ziggurat, ascending stairs that hung over an abyss that seemed to fall into hell itself. The battle seemed to be going well, with Sonja and her men making great progress. But then, Banatos had come under attack by some enemy sorcerers, and Darren rushed to defend him. Catching the brunt of the attack, Darren was mortally wounded, and in a fury, Red Sonja rushed in, slaying the enemies, and having Darren carried away to a side room. There, with tears in her eyes, Sonja was forced to say her goodbyes to Darren. The man once again declared his love for her, and she in turn declared her love for him. As Darren passed, Sonja once again saw that being, that vision from her youth, and she was filled with energy and a thirst for vengeance. At Banatos' request, Sonja took Odorok's ashes and ascended the rest of the floors, alongside her mercenaries and some of the sorcerers, who now defected from Thotis, having by now seen through his madness. At long last, this group came to the temple where Thotis was holed up with the Star of Doom. There was no great battle here. Taking Odorok's ashes, Banatos and the other sorcerers formed a ring around Thotis, who ranted and raved of his power, yet was helpless to stop them. Thotis, who wished to rule the world with the star from the heavens, sat on his throne and died in agony. No sooner was the madman slain, however, when Sonja was pulled by Banatos. They had to escape now, for the ziggurat was collapsing, being bombarded with some great power. A voice rang out. The star was free, and it was exercising its will. Sonja and Banatos had only barely escaped the ziggurat and fled across the fields when the Star of Doom began to lurch back into the sky. With a force greater than any seen before, it launched up. Winds howled greater than any hurricane, and the earth shook more terribly than any earthquake. The devastation was absolute and everywhere, as the star, which had been prisoner for 10 years, which had fed on the life of the land for 10 years, at last returned to the sky. The last thing Sonja saw was the pillar of fire it left behind, and the destruction it caused to the land, before she, at long last, collapsed from exhaustion. When she awoke, Sonja learned that she and Banatos were the only survivors of the Great Cataclysm, with all others being destroyed by the star's ascent or buried in the strewn-about rubble. Had Thotis lived, he would have surely used the star's power to lay claim to the world itself, sacrificing every man, woman, and child to hell. Thanks to Ba'ugan, Sonja, and the loss of many lives, that doom was averted. Yet, there was one last thing that needed to be taken care of. The story ends with Sonja returning, alone, to Oscilla the Swamp Witch and slaying her. With Oscilla's death, the souls of those lost in the swamp, those twisted, corrupt creatures from before, were at last free, as was the soul of Darren. Feeling at peace once again, Red Sonja returned to her horse and rode off, once again, to her destiny. As the finale of a 6-part novel series, the Star of Doom has it all. A grand battle with the fate of the world at stake, good wizards, bad wizards, love and grief, it's all here. This and the Ring of Akribu are the only entries in the series where Sonja falls in love with a companion, and in both stories, that love interest perishes. There's other elements present here found in previous novels as well, such as a friendly magic user who lends Sonja their aid, a villain using powers beyond their control, and a final fight where Sonja herself ultimately hardly participates. The climax of the story, in fact, is more focused on getting out of the ziggurat. Thotis is killed in only a page and a half, which is quite underwhelming, though it does serve as a good payoff for Odorok's ashes. I have to say, something that surprised me was how progressive this story was regarding homosexuality. This book was written in, 1983? While it's not a major plot point or anything, the character Iatos is openly gay, and only the obviously evil characters in the story insult or threaten him over it. He's otherwise treated like any other companion by Sonja herself, which is nice. It's a shame he dies alongside everyone else at the end. If you were looking for some grand ending to the series here, you won't find it. Star of Doom ends just as open-ended as the other entries in the series, with Red Sonja riding off for further adventures. This is just as well, since by now we know that there are many, many more stories featuring the Hercanian. Overall, I enjoyed it. Maybe not as much as the others. There's an awful lot of travel in this one and not much combat for one. Still, it's a good book and a fantastic end to a series. I give it a 4 out of 5 and, as usual, I think it's worth checking out. Thus ends my review of the Red Sonja novel series. What did you think? Do you like Red Sonja, and would you check these books out? Let me know what you think in the comments section below. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, then please leave a like or share this video with a friend. If you subscribe and turn on notifications, you'll be alerted whenever I upload new videos. And of course, if you want to support me directly, consider heading over to Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, patrons get early access to all of my lore content, and I sincerely appreciate their support. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.